Today we're going to be going over how to pull gonads from grass carp. What we will be putting them in is 10% neutral buffered formula. We'll have one jar and we can put all of our samples in this one jar. If you're going to be collecting a lot of fish, you would want a larger jar. We will be putting our samples in these little cassettes right here. One of the most important things to notice here is that we need to label on the outside. We are going to be putting them in liquid, so there will be no tape or physical labels put in there. What we will end up doing is we will end up writing the number in pencil on each one of these sides. Okay? A unique ID per fish. So we have this one, and this is our first fish today, so we're just going to go number 1, but remember the unique ID, okay, in pencil along each one of these sides so that it fits. And that is for redundancy, because sometimes when you go into liquid, some of these will wipe off, okay? We will also end up weighing the gonads, so it's also handy to have a spare one around, so when you put it on the scale, you can zero it to that one. They were all going to weigh the same. And then when you have your samples, you weigh it with that one, okay? After you've made the incision to open up the belly, a lot of necropsies will require you to take a portion of their gut. This is the intestine and the gut. Here, this right here is the liver, okay? So, not gonad. You can just pull all this stuff out. So you'll have a gallbladder kind of hidden in there. Be careful not to burst that, or you will have a very smelly necropsy. So, whatever samples you need to take to make this clear and accessible. So now we see that we have a clear view of the gonads. The gonads run all the way from the exit hole to the entrance hole. Okay, these are female gonads. They are starting to ripe, you can see this, but they're not as big as they can be. A technique that is because you have to pull the entire gonad out, and if you just kind of pull from one end and try to pull down, you will rip the whole seam. So a technique that I tend to use is I will take my hand and I will break. There's a membrane back here that's holding the gonads together, and it'll be connected to a layer of fat. So I'll just take it and break it by pushing my hand all the way down, okay? And this is the membrane that I'm talking about right here. I don't know if you can see that. And just go down and break all the way across. Okay? This is the quickest way to be gentle with gonads, is by taking outside the layers that are connected to it, but not let it leak out. So right here you can see that there's exposed eggs. So we'll kind of do the same thing on this side. We go and break this membrane, and we'll end up pulling them all out as one big unit. I'm grabbing the membrane that's behind the gonads. I'm not grabbing the gonads at all, okay? The membrane that is behind it. And this is the swim bladder. It'll never be perfect. There'll always be some pieces that kind of get attached. Okay? So now we have the full gonad set. There's a little bit of fat that can be taken off. Sometimes during the breeding season, they'll actually be covered with a lot more fat. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, what you do is you just kind of take a knife and you cut off the fat, right? Not the gonad, not the membrane. You're going to keep the membrane intact. Okay? Then we need to weigh it. We're going to take a container. You might need a larger container than this, but you're going to put it on the scale and you're going to zero the scale. Okay? And then you will put the entire gonad into the container, all of it, and weigh it after this has been zeroed by itself. And you'll get the weight of the gonad. Okay. Now, we have to look at these gonads and see, are they morphologically similar? These two gonads are morphologically similar. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take one gonad, and we're going to basically slice it into 5 equal slices. Or similar slices. Okay? And this is so that we're going to make sure that we get a sample from each end, because they do not grow the same starting at the top or the bottom. Sometimes they'll start here and they'll develop more as they get higher up. So you want a view of the entire gonad, how development is going across the entire length of the gonad. So now we have our cassette that we're going to end up putting the samples in, and we're going to take a sliver. Okay? This does not have to be large. In fact, I will show you exactly how big it should be. This is a quarter in my hand, and that's the size of the sample that we're going to take out of each fifth of the gonad. So I'll put it in. I took my first sample from this end of the gonads, so I'm going to switch over to this side because I do not want to take them adjacent to each other. So once again, just a small slice and placed in the cassette. Continue this for 5 samples, spacing them out a little bit in the cassette itself. So you can see that I have 5 different samples. Now we weigh this sample, okay? So remember, the scale is zeroed with our extra cassette, and then we place this on and get a full weight. We have it labeled with our unique ID on all 3 sides of the cassette. 1, 2, 3, and then we drop it in. That's it. We have here is a male grass carp. We have the swim bladder left and the gonads. Once again, the gonads run all the way from the exit hole, basically up here to the very top towards the head. Okay. These are male gonads. They're not exactly ripe yet, so they're a bit smaller than maybe you'll be seeing, or you'll end up seeing some that are quite larger. Okay. So once again, we want to try and pull them out as a complete unit. Again, just kind of breaking the membrane that's behind the gonad itself. It's a little bit easier with nails because they're less delicate. So, pulling the membrane from the back, all the way forward. As mentioned previously, this will cause us to grab a bit of fat. Okay? So in that case, you just kind of take a knife and you clean it up a bit. Or scissors, whatever you have available. And during breeding season, you'll see a lot more fat than what is here right now. But just kind of, you'll be able to see the difference between what is actually gonad and what is fat. And you can feel the difference too, where the fat is kind of spongy, I guess, or it's really slimy, more slimy texture. But this is, the gonad has a more solid texture, where if you squeeze into it. Oops. And sometimes mistakes happen, where you take off a bit of gonad, that's fine. Okay, so as you can see, I've taken the fat off of the male gonads. You see there's a little lovely pile right here. There's a difference in consistency and color as well, okay? So once again, we want to try and look and see if they are morphologically similar. These two are morphologically similar, but in the case that you might find one that are different, and what I mean by morphologically similar is the structure, the length, and the growth pattern, okay? So if we have one that's kind of only grown up to here and the rest is really, really thin, or this one is the same, that would be considered morphologically different, okay? Or if there were large tumors in these as well, okay? So let's pretend that they're morphologically different, even though they are similar. And what we are going to end up doing is taking 3 samples from one and 2 samples from the other. So once again, I will just slice them, where I'm going to end up taking the samples and cut this one in thirds as well, just to get a separation. Okay, so this is the one I'm going to take 3 samples from. 1, 2, and take it down this end. 3. Put those in our uniquely identified cassette that is labeled on all 3 sides with pencil, not marker. Marker will come off. Okay, so that's what we would do if they're morphologically similar. Again, these are very similar, so you would take 5 sections from one gonad, as we did from the female. We have ours, 5 different sections. Close the lid, and we put it in our bottle of natural buffered formula, 10%. Girls and the boys go in the same bottle. As long as they're labeled with pencil, we can store them in the bottle for as long as we need to.